Hello, Connect Groups. This week's chapter number 6, talks about Jesus-centered culture. And we understand culture as the heart of the church, our character, how we are different from other churches. Chancellor is unique in the whole world because our heart is different from the others in the way we do things, in the way we perceive things, in the way we present the gospel to others. So it's really interesting to talk about this chapter here in this moment. Culture, it's very important. Like we read in the book, to know the church culture is to know its theology, philosophy, and practice. And we understand theology in what the church thinks about God, the beliefs that the church holds doctrinally. Philosophy is the church's thinking about ministry, and practice is what the church actually does. It's like a house, the author says. Theology is the foundation, philosophy is the structure of the house, the design, like numbers of rooms, how many bathrooms, living rooms, etc. And practice is the furnishings and the fixtures. All three together form a house and make a very unique, but they have an order of importance. We can have the best and most expensive furnishings, but if we have a bad and weak foundation, the house is not going to last. Of course, the philosophy and practices are important. However, if we don't have the most important part, which is the foundation, in great shape, the rest doesn't matter. And based on those three aspects of the house, our church, we are going to have our culture, our church's culture. Reading the book, a church called Tov, T-O-V, which it's a Hebrew word that means good or goodness, one of the most popular terms in the Bible. The author of this book, A Church Called Tov, says the following about culture. He says, we form culture, but we are simultaneously formed by the cultures we're helping to form. It's like a marriage. Marry someone, and before long you and your spouse will shape each other. Out of that mutual shaping and forming grows a culture of love. That culture of love and concern and commitment begins to shape you and your spouse, and on it goes. This is one dimension of what the Bible means by the two become one. The author of this book says, I learned it, I practiced it, and I passed on to others. Culture is a powerful formative agent. Like in Galatians 5:19-23, the author contrasts the act of the flesh and the fruit of the Spirit. Toxic, flesh-driven cultures breed a lust of power, success, celebrity, controlled through fear and emphasis on authority, and demands for loyalty. However, Spirit-formed, Christ-like culture, the author says, on the other hand, nurtures truth, offers healing for the wounded, seeks opportunities to show redemptive grace and love, focused on serving others rather than being served, and looks for ways to establish justice in the daily paths of life. How we understand and feel about our relationship with God is formed and fostered by the culture of the church we are in. The question here is, how is the culture of our church? Like Chancellor, we have empathy and compassion, or we judge and point fingers to others. We show grace and graciousness. Oh, we don't forgive and give second opportunities. Do we put people first, or we compromise relationships over programs and numbers? We have a telling truth culture, or we hide behind excuses and judgmental statements. We have a service culture, or we like to be served. We treat others equally, or we have preferences. The bottom line, do we present our church as a Christ-like community, or we are just here to be people-like, being served and getting benefits from it? What is the culture of Chancellor? And now, how do we build healthy church culture? The culture of our church isn't something we can ignore. Remember, the culture in our church is not set. For better or for worse, is always evolving. And in order to create a healthy church culture, we have to be purposeful. We have to have the purpose to do it. Start with clarifying our values, taking a long look in the mirror, and actively modeling and communicating what we believe. And in time, we will mold our church's culture. How can you pray? And how can you have the same confidence that the Apostle Paul had when he said, "Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ," like he said in 1 Corinthians 11:1. How is our culture? How we are perceived by our community in Fredericksburg? It's really a great question to know. We have to know who we are first in order to project that to others. Are we following Christ and following what He is telling us in the Bible, or we're just doing what we think it's correct and it's good? There is a huge difference between those two, and we have to know to follow Jesus Christ's path before my expectations, before my way to do things. So I encourage all the Connect groups to start thinking about the culture in our church and start forming a Christ-like culture in Chancellor. We can do it. You can do it. And I can do it. We can do it together. Let's try to know the theology behind what is being preached, behind what is being scheduled in programs. Let's start to know what is the philosophy of doing things for that theology that we're preaching. And last, let's start knowing how can we better do and practice the theology and the philosophy of our church. Let's start knowing intentionally what our church culture is being formed and it's all about. By knowing that, we'll start helping and serving others better.